Funding for Spider-Freelance is provided by Raid Shadow Legends, the only game that... Wait, I don't even get the sponsor. Well, hello there, Spider-Dash here. I don't know if you noticed this over my last videos, but I'm a big Spider-Man fan. And if there's something that Spider-Man fans love more than arguing with each other, are the movies. Countless hours of fun that help us to imagine what it will feel to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Most of us watched the Spider-Man movies when we were kids, and now it is an essential part of our lives. So much so that I'm willing to say that Spider-Man changed our lives for the better. In most cases. That's why today I want to bring you my personal ranking of the Spider-Man movies. And remember that this is my personal opinion and it's just as valid as yours. But before starting the video, I have to mention that only 3.5% of you guys are subscribed. So if you're enjoying my content, give me a like, click the subscribe button, and leave in the comments your personal ranking of the Spider-Man films. And with that out of the way, let's begin! Something that I should have said at the beginning of the video is that there isn't such thing as an awful Spider-Man movie. Yes, some of them are better than others, yes there's some good stuff, some bad stuff, but none of them are Batman Forever. Not even close. That said though, I think that the worst Spider-Man movie is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Why, you ask? Well, it makes the worst mistake that a Spider-Man movie can make. It's boring. One of the last times that I watched this movie, I had to see it in 2 different days because I just couldn't stand it. You could take off the plot of Peter's dad from the movie and it wouldn't change a thing. Worst of all is that it leads nowhere. And when Peter's dad says that only Peter could become Spider-Man because the spiders had his DNA, takes the everyone could be Spider-Man feeling from the movie. Harry Osborn is an entire different problem, because the movie says that Peter and Harry had known each other since childhood. It feels like there is an entire movie that we didn't get to watch. To that I have a solution. You have Harry and Peter meeting in college, in a scene like this. Hi, my name is Peter, how are you? I have the big sad because my father just died. You will never understand it. No way, my parents died as well. Let's be friends. Okay. And that way, it doesn't feel like we just missed an entire movie. Speaking of which, the movie wants you to feel bad about Harry. But it doesn't succeed because Harry is a complete jerk.
Harry.
It's Mr. Osborn. We're not friends.
I don't feel bad about you, you got yourself kicked out of your own company. Speaking of cringe, Max Dillon, he doesn't feel like a lonely person. He feels like a parody of a lonely person. I feel like the movie needed to take him more seriously, to make justice to the story that Max Dillon was trying to tell. But instead I feel like I'm watching the Joker, but rated E for everyone. And the worst mistake of the movie is that it made the same mistake that Spider-Man 3 made more than half a decade ago. The movie is stuffed with things that don't serve the plot. Instead, the plot tries to serve those things. The movie has 3 villains again, and if that wasn't enough, the movie is constantly deviating. Like here is Black Cat, you want a Black Cat movie, right? Here, let me introduce you to Sinister Six, you want the Sinister Six, right? You want a movie about them, right? Give me your money! Overall, I have to say that the movie shines. And when it shines, you can feel in the clouds. Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker are the best part of this movie. Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield have such a good chemistry that I wish that this movie was exclusively about them. A romantic Spider-Man movie with minimal action, starred by Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone? I'm all in for it. The best part about this movie is when I can let myself go and fall in love with Gwen Stacy because I'm seeing her through Peter's eyes. The best part of this movie is when the director is making the movie that he wanted to make. The best part of this movie is when I'm watching a tragic love story about 2 people that the universe is telling them that they can't be together, but they're willing to sacrifice everything just to be with each other. And you know what? My heart melts. My heart melts every time that I see Peter and Gwen together. And my heart breaks every time that I see Gwen Stacy die. My heart breaks along with Peter's. The movie makes you care, the movie makes you fall in love with both of them. Under all Sony's trash, there is a really amazing Spider-Man movie.
I'm really strong and I'm sticky!
I have to say that I don't think that this is a bad movie. As a matter of fact, I can watch this movie without falling asleep, unlike The Amazing Spider-Man 2. My main problem with this movie is the character of Peter Parker. And before you tell me that I hate Tom Holland, no. Tom Holland is nothing less than an amazing actor. You can tell that he's putting his heart and soul into these movies. My main problem is with the direction that the studio decided to take. What problem, you ask? Spider-Man Homecoming is a story about Peter questioning if he wants to be Iron Man / an Avenger, just to find out that he's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
What the
And Spider-Man Far From Home is a story about Peter questioning if he wants to be Iron Man / an Avenger, just to find out that he's the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, just that this time he's on vacation. It doesn't feel just like they're using the same plot again, it feels like a regression of the character, why he has to learn the same lesson twice. But also I have to mention that there is a lot of good things in this movie, and my favorite part, by far, is Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. Every time that Mysterio and Peter are together, it feels like pure gold. The chemistry between Tom Holland and Jake Gyllenhaal feels so good, so real, and it gives a lot of points to this movie. I just wish that the movie was more about them and less about vacation and chilled. I have to be honest with you guys, this movie isn't just bad, it's awful. Everything in this movie is so bad and so wrong that it's actually good. This movie is the equivalent of going to McDonald's, putting every drink from the soda machine in your paper cup and then drinking everything with just one sip. It's an awful experience, but it tastes good, and you might get diabetes. The visuals in this movie are awful. The movie wants you to take it seriously, but the script doesn't help. Everything that Eddie does is so cringe-worthy that you wonder how is Tom Hardy able to stay in character, and that is hilarious. Almost every line that Venom says is so dumb that it makes him sound smart.
Rolling down the street like a turd in the wind. Do you feel me?
If there's anything good in this movie, anything, that will be the relationship between Venom and Eddie.
On my planet, I am kind of a loser, like you.
Cut the bullshit. What really made you change your mind?
You did, Eddie.
Without any sense of guilt, I can say that this movie is so bad that it's actually good, and I actually enjoy it, unironically.
What's up, Mr. Stark?
I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is a really good movie. You could watch it from beginning to end and barely sense any time passing because that's how good it is. It's so entertaining. People love Tom Holland and I get it. He's really likable. His youthful charm makes him so impossible to hate. My problem with this movie is that everything revolves around Iron Man. Even the villain's main conflict isn't against Peter Parker, isn't against Spider-Man. The villain's main conflict is against Iron Man. So when Vulture and Spider-Man fight, it doesn't feel like it has any emotional weight in the movie. It just feels like the Vulture didn't get his chance to fight against a bigger hero. Peter's internal conflict revolves around him wanting to impress Tony Stark so he can be an Avenger. And you could work with that. You could work with Spider-Man wanting to be an Avenger with the proper motivation. Maybe making him think that if he was an Avenger, he would be able to help even more people. So at the end, you make him realize that he never needed the Avengers to make a difference. But the movie makes it seem like he just wants to be an Avenger to get Tony Stark's attention. And that is just something that I don't connect with. But if you do connect with this, that is okay because that means that this is your Spider-Man. Maybe just like this Peter Parker, you grew up watching the Avengers. And that makes you connect with this Spider-Man. And that is okay because this is a perfectly good movie. You can tell that Tom Holland is doing his best with what he's given. I just don't think that this is the best Spider-Man representation. If I watch this movie trying to forget that it is a Spider-Man movie, I find myself really entertained because it is a really good movie. I have to be totally honest, this movie isn't that much better than the last one, but there is something that sets it apart, and that is that this movie stopped trying to be so edgy, and it just accepted the absurdity of the situation. The fact that Venom and Eddie argue like a married couple is comedy gold. And not only that, it feels like the most natural step to take. I think that the visuals look better at times. The only thing that I dislike about this movie is that the conflict between Eddie and Cletus doesn't feel that personal, and hence the final battle doesn't feel like it has a lot of emotional weight. But honestly, who cares about that? If this movie wanted a final battle with emotional weight, the soundtrack would be orchestrated instead of rock. Everyone involved in this movie was having fun, and you can tell because when you watch this movie, you can have a lot of fun. This movie is definitely not a masterpiece, but not every movie needs to be a masterpiece. You can have fun making a movie, and Venom, Let There Be Carnage, is proof of that.
Somebody's been a bad lizard.
The Amazing Spider-Man is a really good movie. Andrew Garfield is my favorite actor to play Spider-Man as well as Peter Parker. I feel like Andrew Garfield is the best to play a modern version of Spider-Man, while Tobey Maguire is the best to embody a classic version of Spider-Man, and Tom Holland is the best to embody the Ultimate Spider-Man from the Ultimate Comics. But I digress. I just want to tell you that Andrew Garfield is the perfect actor to play Spider-Man. He's putting all of his heart into making the best movie that he can, and you can tell.
Peter Parker has inspired me to feel stronger. He made me, Andrew, braver. He reassured me that by doing the right thing, it's worth it. It's worth the struggle, it's worth the pain.
He's having the time of his life making this movie. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are definitely the soul of these movies. They will be my favorite couple in any Spider-Man movie, ever. They make me wish that romance was like this in real life. Mark Webb is perfect to direct romance movies. He casted Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. He definitely has an eye for these sort of things. So, where did everything go wrong?
Really, Avi was in charge the entire time. Avi knows all.
Avi a rat. I swear guys, the worst Spider-Man enemy are in the Sinister Six. The worst Spider-Man enemy isn't Venom. Neither the Green Goblin. Not even the lady that refused to pay him the pizza. The worst Spider-Man enemy is this guy. He refuses to let the directors do their jobs. And it sucks, because when this movie isn't shining because of the brilliance of Mark Webb, or because how good of an actors Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield are, when this movie isn't shining, it feels generic, and it feels cheap. Why in the name of God the lizard looks like Bowser from the Super Mario movie? I think that the worst mistake of this movie is that it had everything to set itself apart, but the people at Sony literally sucked the soul of this movie.
You're trash, Brock.
Yeah, hear me out first. Spider-Man 3 was the first Spider-Man movie that was screwed by Sony. Sam Raimi wanted this to be a story about Peter, Mary Jane, Harry, and Sandman. Just a small story, just like Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2. So, Sam Raimi did the best that he could to keep it small. And even if you don't think that he succeeded, he made a wonderful job with what he had to work with. Spider-Man 3 is not perfect, but Spider-Man 3 is great. It narrates the story of a person that has been long abused, and now he finds himself in a position where he can abuse others, where he has all the power, and there is no one to stop him, where with a great power comes a great responsibility, no longer applies. It feels like the only natural step to take, and you can tell that he feels good about it. He becomes addicted to the feeling of power, but as all addictions, it hurts everyone around you. It hurts the people that you love the most. Spider-Man 3 is far from perfect, but it's better than just a bad movie. Spider-Man 3 teaches us that no one is exempt of making mistakes, not even Spider-Man. Our mistakes will create monsters, and those monsters will hurt other people, and then our hearts will be poisoned. But it is in us to forgive ourselves, and only then we'll be able to forgive those around us. Spider-Man 3 might be a bad movie, but hundreds of Hollywood blockbusters wish that they had a tenth of the heart that Spider-Man 3 has. Spider-Man 3 is by no means the movie that Sam Raimi wanted to make, but it's the movie that we deserve. Spider-Man 3 is a product of its time, when even if the directors had to follow a script made by the big heads of the studio, they were free to make movies. And you know what? I miss those times.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Spider-Man by Sam Raimi might be the most iconic superhero movie ever, or at least one of the most iconic superhero movies ever. Everything in the world that Sam Raimi created is so memorable. I know a lot of lines of the movie, I'm able to remember them, even when I haven't watched the movie in a long time. I miss the part where that's my problem. He stinks and I don't like him. Guy with 8 hands? Sounds hot. Looks like a spider, looks like a bug. Are you in or are you out? It's you who's out, Gobby. Out of your mind. I was in the neighborhood. I had to beat an old lady with a stick. I offer you my friendship and you spat on my face. Godspeed, Spider-Man. This movie has a lot of iconic moments because it is a 100% Sam Raimi movie. The world that he created for Spider-Man is not only good because the movie is overall good, but because Sam Raimi knows the character. Sam Raimi knows how to pay tribute to the character of Spider-Man. This movie is not only a good movie, it is the perfect Spider-Man introduction to the world. It's insane how it has been 20 years since this movie released and it holds up pretty well. This movie is more unique and it has more style than almost all of the superhero movies recently released. I think that overall, if it wasn't because of this movie, Spider-Man as we know him wouldn't be the titan that he is nowadays. This movie is what helped to solidify the legend of the Amazing Spider-Man. Okay, these next movies are not only my favorite Spider-Man movies, but some of my favorite movies of all time. So if you tell me that any of this is your favorite Spider-Man movie, I wouldn't disagree.
Can the Spider-Man come out to play?
Spider-Man No Way Home is a tribute not only to the Spider-Man films, but to everything that Spider-Man represents. Spider-Man No Way Home has a runtime of 2 hours and 39 minutes, but you never feel those almost 3 hours. The film always jumps from idea to idea, and every single idea of this movie feels refreshing. Tom Holland is not only redeemed in this movie, but taken to a whole new different level. Tom Holland feels like the Spider-Man that should have been since the beginning. This movie shows how wonderful of an actor Tom Holland is when given good material to work with. Tobey Maguire is perfect in this movie. He's the perfect older brother for the other two Spider-Men. And it feels like it was yesterday, the last time that we saw him playing Spider-Man. But Tobey Maguire didn't need any further development. The one that deserves all the attention that he's getting is Andrew Garfield. He proves in this movie why he's the Amazing Spider-Man. The little time that he's in the movie, he gets more developed than in his entire saga. When you first see him, you can't help but smile, until he remembers you what he lost. But it's not until certain scene that you can't help but cry. That's his redemption as a character, and I hope that we get to see more of him as a Spider-Man. Spider-Man No Way Home is a roller coaster of emotions. You will laugh, you will scream, and you will cry. Spider-Man No Way Home is not only a good movie, it's a good Spider-Man movie. It feels like the movie that we deserved since a long time. It feels like the culmination of 20 years of Spider-Man movies. It shows why Spider-Man will always be the #1 superhero. If you are a Spider-Man fan and you can't watch this movie without feeling any kind of emotion, go to see a doctor, because you are dead and you don't have a soul. First of all, why do I think that Into the Spider-Verse is better than No Way Home? Because Into the Spider-Verse can be sustained on its own, while No Way Home works only if you watched all the movies years ago. The references in Into the Spider-Verse are just a cherry on the top, but in No Way Home's case, the references are part of the cake. Into the Spider-Verse has a lot of style. It's the first animated movie of its kind. It feels new, and on top of that, it has heart, a lot of heart. And it pays tribute to the character in the best way possible. Into the Spider-Verse comes to prove that anyone can wear the mask. It's not about the spider, It's not about the powers, it's about never giving up. Miles Morales feels refreshing. He's not another copy of Peter Parker. He has his own problems, his own identity, his own struggles, and just like Miles, every other character feels unique on its own. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man No Way Home are examples that when something good is made, it will unite people instead of divide them. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the best tribute to the character up to date, because it teaches us that the best way to be Spider-Man is to
Don't do it like me. Do it like you.
Pizza time.
Spider-Man 2 by Sam Raimi is not only my favorite Spider-Man movie, but my favorite movie of all time. Spider-Man 2 was the first movie that made me feel inspired. Spider-Man 2 is not only a good superhero movie, but it is a perfect movie. Every time that I think about me, every time that I think about the ordinary man, I think about Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is the best movie to represent the average guy. Not because the average guy has spider powers, but because the average guy has the same struggles than Peter Parker has. Spider-Man 2 not only makes me want to be a better person, it makes me want to inspire others to be greater. And that's the best kind of art. The kind of art that inspires people to inspire others. The art that expresses itself because its message is too powerful to be ignored. A hero doesn't need to be a billionaire, a god, or a dude who can turn himself into a green monster. Someone struggling to pay rent can as well be a hero. And that makes me feel like I can be a hero as well. I think that we haven't seen the day that Spider-Man 2 is dethroned. I don't think that we'll see it soon. Spider-Man 2 is more than just a good movie. Spider-Man 2 is a masterpiece in every possible way, and I'm thankful that I was born in a timeline where I can experience a movie as good as Spider-Man 2. Well, you stayed until the end. Thank you for watching my video. And wait, before you leave, I want to give a couple of shoutouts from my last video. If I don't give you a shoutout, it's not because I don't want to. Just know that I'm trying my best. You can try to get a shoutout again. And if you already got a shoutout, let others the chance to get a shoutout. A shoutout to Quiva. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your nickname. Luis Urda, Ran, Toy Bonnie, Tyler GameStar123, Neat Films, Animation Guys, Domocat64, Gaijin Animations, BioWolf1921, El Praystack, Jojo Bean, X-Men Car X, Alfonso Suarez, and last but not least, Awesome Austin. If you want a shoutout in the next video, give me a like, click the subscribe button, and leave in the comments your personal ranking of the Spider-Man films. And I'll give you a shoutout in my next video. And without anything else to say, I'll see you the next time.